Robert Louis Stevenson. Treasure Island. Chapter 34. And last. The next morning we started work early, because moving this great amount of gold nearly a mile over land to the beach, and then 3 miles by boat to the Hispaniola, was a big task for so few men. The 3 men still somewhere on the island did not worry us much. One guard on the side of the hill was enough to protect us from any sudden attack, and besides, we thought they had already had enough fighting. So the work went on quickly. Gray and Ben Gunn went back and forth with the boat, while the rest of us, when they were away, piled the treasure on the beach. 2 gold bars, tied at the end of a rope, made a heavy load for one man, so heavy that he had to walk slowly. As for me, since I was not strong enough to carry much, I spent the whole day in the cave putting the coins into bread bags. It was a strange collection, like Billy Bones's treasure because of the many different kinds of coins, but much bigger and more varied. I think I never had more pleasure than when I sorted them. There were English, French, Spanish, and Portuguese coins, Georges and Louises, doubloons, double guineas, moidores, and sequins. There were pictures of all the kings of Europe from the last 100 years, strange Eastern coins with marks like threads or spider webs, round coins, square coins, and coins with holes in the middle, as if to wear around your neck. Almost every kind of money in the world seemed to be there. And there were so many that they were like autumn leaves, so that my back hurt from bending and my fingers hurt from sorting them. Day after day this work continued. Every evening, a fortune had been loaded onto the ship, but another fortune still waited for the next day. And all this time we heard nothing from the 3 remaining mutineers. At last, I think it was on the 3rd night, the doctor and I were walking on the side of the hill, looking over the lower land of the island, when from the deep darkness below, the wind brought us a sound between a scream and a song. It was only a short piece that we heard, and then everything was quiet again. God forgive them, said the doctor. It is the mutineers. They are all drunk, sir, said Silver's voice from behind us. Silver, I should explain, was allowed to move freely, and even though he was often treated coldly, he acted as if he were once again a trusted and friendly helper. It was surprising how well he accepted these insults, and how politely he kept trying to please everyone. Still, I think no one treated him better than a dog, except perhaps Ben Gunn, who was still very afraid of his old officer, or me, who had some reason to thank him. But even I had reason to think worse of him than anyone else, because I had seen him planning another betrayal on the plateau. So the doctor answered him in a rather cold way. Drunk or mad, he said. You are right, sir, answered Silver, and it makes very little difference to you and me. I suppose you would not expect me to call you a kind man, said the doctor with a mocking smile. And so my feelings may surprise you, Master Silver. But if I were sure they were out of their minds, as I am almost sure that at least one of them has a fever, I would leave this camp, and, even at risk to my own life, go to help them with my skill. I beg your pardon, sir. You would be very wrong, said Silver. You would lose your valuable life, you can be sure of that. I am on your side now, completely, and I would not like to see our group become weaker, especially you, since I know what I owe you. But those men down there could not keep their word, no, not even if they wanted to. And what is more, they could not believe that you would. No, said the doctor. You are the one who keeps his word, we know that. Well, that was almost the last news we had of the 3 pirates. Only once we heard a gunshot far away and thought they were hunting. A meeting was held, and it was decided that we must leave them on the island. This made Ben Gunn very happy, and Gray strongly agreed. We left them a good supply of gunpowder and bullets, most of the salted goat meat, some medicines, and other necessary things, tools, clothes, a spare sail, some rope, and, at the doctor's special request, a generous amount of tobacco. That was almost the last thing we did on the island. Before that, we had stored the treasure on the ship and taken enough water and the rest of the goat meat in case of trouble. At last, one fine morning, we lifted the anchor, which was almost all we could manage, and sailed out of North Inlet, flying the same flag that the captain had used and fought under at the stockade. The 3 men must have been watching us more closely than we thought, because we soon saw them. As we passed through the narrow channel, we had to sail very close to the southern point, and there we saw all 3 of them mealing together on a strip of sand, with their arms raised, begging us. I think it made us all feel sad to leave them in such a terrible condition. But we could not risk another mutiny, and to take them home to be hanged would have been a cruel kindness. The doctor called out to them and told them about the supplies we had left and where they could find them. But they kept shouting our names and begging us for God's sake to be kind and not leave them to die in such a place. At last, when they saw that the ship was still sailing away and was now quickly moving out of hearing, one of them, I do not know which, jumped to his feet with a rough cry, raised his gun, and fired a shot that passed over Silver's head and through the mainsail. After that, we stayed below the sides of the ship for safety, and when I looked out again, they had disappeared from the sand, and the sand itself had almost vanished in the distance. That was the end of it, and before noon, to my great joy, the highest rock of Treasure Island had disappeared into the blue sea. We had so few men that everyone on board had to help. Only the captain lay on a mattress at the back of the ship and gave orders, because although he was much better, he still needed rest. We set our course for the nearest port in Spanish America because we could not risk sailing home without more crew. And even so, with difficult winds and a couple of strong storms, we were all very tired before we arrived. It was just at sunset when we dropped anchor in a very beautiful, closed bay, and we were at once surrounded by small boats from the shore, full of black people, Mexican Indians, and mixed people selling fruit and vegetables and offering to dive for coins. The sight of so many friendly faces, especially the black people, the taste of tropical fruit, and above all the lights that began to shine in the town made a strong and pleasant contrast to our dark and bloody time on the island. The doctor and the squire took me with them and went ashore to spend the early part of the night. There they met the captain of an English warship, talked with him, went on board his ship, and had such a good time that it was already morning when we returned to the Hispaniola. Ben Gunn was alone on deck, and as soon as we came on board, he began, with strange movements, to confess something. Silver was gone. The Maroon had secretly helped him escape in a small boat a few hours earlier, and he now told us that he had done it only to save our lives because that man with one leg would certainly have caused our deaths if he had stayed on board. But that was not all. The sea cook had not left empty-handed. He had quietly cut through a wall and taken one bag of coins, worth perhaps 300 or 400 guineas, to help him in his future travels. I think we were all glad to be rid of him so easily. To make a long story short, we took on a few more men, made a good journey home, and the Hispaniola arrived in Bristol just when Mr. Blandley was beginning to think about sending another ship to look for us. Only 5 of the men who had sailed returned with her. Drink and the devil had taken the rest completely. Although, to be fair, we were not quite as unlucky as the other ship in the song, with 1 man of her crew alive, who had sailed with 75. All of us received a good share of the treasure and used it wisely or foolishly, according to our nature. Captain Smollett has now retired from the sea. Gray not only saved his money, but also decided to improve himself. He studied his work and is now a mate and part owner of a fine ship. He is also married and has a family. As for Ben Gunn, he received £1,000, which he spent or lost in 3 weeks, or more exactly in 19 days, because on the 20th he was already begging again. Then he was given a small house to take care of, just as he had feared on the island. He still lives there, a great favorite, though sometimes laughed at by the village boys, and he is a well-known singer in church on Sundays and special days. We have heard nothing more about Silver. That dangerous sailor with one leg has finally gone out of my life. But I think he may have found his old black wife, and perhaps still lives with her and Captain Flint in comfort. I hope so, because his chances of comfort in another world are very small. The silver bars and the weapons are still, as far as I know, where Flint buried them. And they will stay there as far as I am concerned. Not even oxen and strong ropes could make me return to that cursed island. And my worst dreams are when I hear the sound of waves crashing on its shores, or suddenly sit up in bed with the sharp voice of Captain Flint still ringing in my ears. Pieces of 8. Pieces of 8.